There is a difference between a wish and a command. A wish asks permission. A command creates permission. He was told it was impossible. Science said it. Experts said it. Reality itself seemed to scream that it was impossible. But he possessed a power that bends the laws of physics and silences the chorus of doubt. A power that Napoleon Hill identified as the starting point of all great fortune. This is not a history lesson about cars. It is a case study in how one man's will, focused on a single purpose, can forge an empire out of impossibility. Stay here and discover the anatomy of a miracle and how to apply that same power to your life today. There is an architecture for miracles, a secret physics that governs the rise of empires and the fall of certainties, and its design is not drawn in stone or steel, but in the ethereal and indomitable matter of human thought. For there is a world of difference between a wish and a will. A wish is a whisper in the wind, a timid prayer sent to an indifferent heaven. It is the passive dream of what could be. But the will, the will is a force of nature. It is an act of creation. It is a sovereign command that looks at the fabric of reality and says, with a conviction that shakes the stars, this it will be. This is the story of such a desire that was born in the heart of an America of mud and steam, a nation chained by the tyranny of distance, a time when cities were islands and the horizon an unattainable promise for most. The world, then, belonged to those who could wait. And in the epicenter of that era, in the city of Detroit, where the air smelled of coal and greed and cold Great Lakes rain, the car was a mirage, a noisy, temperamental mechanical toy, hand-built for industrial barons and copper kings. It was a status symbol, proof that its owner had divorced himself from the slowness of the ordinary world. But there was a man whose hands bore the calluses of the farm and whose eyes saw not what was, but what was destined to become. His name was Henry Ford, and in his mind, a heresy was taking shape. A vision so radical, so defiant, that it reeked of madness. He did not see the car as a privilege. He saw it as a right, a tool of liberation, an extension of the very human will to go, to see, to connect. He dreamed of a car for the great multitude, a black car, simple as a prayer, strong as the earth. A car that the farmer, the laborer, the country doctor could not only desire but own. He did not want to join the pantheon of luxury builders. He wanted to set the pantheon on fire. This vision was not a mere business objective. It was what Napoleon Hill, in his autopsy of the minds of giants, would come to codify as the primal law, the alpha principle of all wealth creation, a main purpose defined. It was not an idea that Ford had. It was a fever that possessed him, a divine obsession that became the sun around which his soul orbited. And when a man devotes himself to a purpose with this intensity, the universe ceases to be a passive spectator and becomes an active participant in his drama. First, it tests the strength of his conviction by sending it the deafening echo of all the resistance in the world, and it was this echo that Ford heard first. "Impossible," said the bankers, their faces as impassive as plaster masks. "The common man does not want a car, he wants bread and a roof over his head." "Impractical," said the rival engineers, laughing in their gentlemen's clubs. "The efficiency he seeks would require methods from another century. He will drown in his own ambitions." The world, as it always does, presented Ford with a mirror of his own limitations, a reflection of an unchanging present. Most men, faced with such a chorus of impossibilities, would have recoiled, would have accepted the verdict of reality, would have allowed his command to dissolve back into a wish. But Henry Ford's mind had become something more. It had become a furnace. And in that furnace, he wasn't just planning to build a car, he was forging a new kind of man. And the first step toward that creation was an act of pure defiance, an act of quiet war against the way things are. This is not just the story of how an empire was built, it is the map of what yours will be. Stand here and witness the alchemy of will in action. If you feel that this saga is also yours, if you recognize in yourself this thirst to forge a new world, then sign up now and claim your place in this alliance of architects. I am Prosperum, and in this series, Get Rich the Hill Saga, we will not just study the giants, we will learn to walk on their shoulders. Your decision is the ignition point of the soul. Before it, everything is smoke and speculation. After it, everything becomes fire and movement. Most people spend their entire lives on the threshold of decision, flirting with potential, but married to inertia. They live in the realm of maybe. The architect of reality lives in the land of I have decided. Henry Ford decided. And the moment he did, a transmutation occurred. Doubt, that corrosive fog that paralyzes men, no longer found oxygen to breathe in his presence. The opinions of others, once perhaps relevant, became the distant hum of a world he no longer inhabited. He had burned the bridges to the safe harbor of conformity. There was only the ocean of his ambition and the invisible shore of his vision. This is the power that Napoleon Hill called applied faith. Not blind hope, but an inner certainty so deep that it projects its own force field. Ford's mind became a fortress, and atop the tallest tower flew a single flag, his definite chief purpose. He had failed before. 2 previous companies had crumbled under the weight of their investors' skepticism. They were men of the present, obsessed with immediate profit. They wanted to follow existing maps. Ford, however, was obsessed with the future. These failures were not to him proof that his vision was wrong. They were proof that he was in league with the wrong minds. He understood instinctively the principle of the mastermind. He did not need an army of believers. He needed a handful of loyal men, men who, even if they could not see the world through his eyes, trusted that he had a steady hand on the tiller. And he found them. Men like James Couzens, an accountant who saw not Ford's madness but the integrity of his obsession. Ford was the dynamo, the source. His faith was the sun that warmed and illuminated his entire little solar system. Think about it. On your own journey, who do you surround yourself with? Is your mental echo chamber amplifying the sounds of courage or the whispers of fear? The visionary understands that a great vision is like a newborn flame in a storm. Your first and most sacred duty is not to light the world, but to build a sanctuary to protect that flame. Ford became the high priest of his own cult of purpose. He was undistracted. His mind became a scalpel, dissecting a single problem: how to build faster, stronger, cheaper. How to transform handcrafted complexity into a symphony of mass-produced simplicity. He read about meat processing in Chicago and saw not the dismemberment of animals, but a continuous flow that could be applied to metal. He saw a watch and imagined not time, but the perfection of interchangeable parts. His focused mind became a magnet. And the universe, which is an obedient servant of clarity, began to respond. It began to pull from the ether the resources, ideas, and people he needed. Not by magic, but by natural law. The mind that knows exactly what it is looking for is the only one capable of recognizing it when it finds it. Opportunity is not blind. It reveals itself only to the eyes that are looking for it. How this truth resonates with you. And are you ready to turn your mind into a magnet for success? So give it your like in this video, an act of command. Click not just with your finger, but with intent. Declare to the universe that from today on, you refuse to wander. You have decided to hunt for opportunities. But the ultimate test of a visionary's soul does not come in the form of an opportunity. It comes in the form of a wall that every expert, every science textbook, every human experience declares to be insurmountable. For Henry Ford, that wall was made of cast iron, and its name was the V8 engine. Ford's vision of automotive supremacy required a new heart for his machine, a heart with more power but less weight and complexity. In his mind, the image was crystal clear, an 8-cylinder engine whose blocks would not be bolted together as separate parts but cast as a single solid piece of iron, a monoblock. It was a vision of elegance, power, and above all, mass production efficiency. He called together his engineers, the best in the world, men of logic, steel, and calculation. He did not present them with a proposal. He gave them a gospel, and he gave them an order. The response was a wall of awe and disbelief. "Mr. Ford," they said, "what you describe is a metallurgical impossibility." They explained, with the patience of men explaining gravity to a child who dreams of flying. They talked about thermal stress, about how such a complex block would inevitably crack as it cooled. They talked about the precision of the molds, a precision that the technology of the time could not guarantee. They used science, reason, and experience to build a cathedral of logic around a single truth: it cannot be done. And here, in this moment of confrontation, history forks. The path of reason leads to acceptance, to compromise, to the search for a lesser solution. But the path of purpose leads to war. Ford listened to them in silence. He absorbed their logic. He felt the weight of their experience. And then, with a calm that was more terrifying than any fury, he spoke the words that would become the legend whispered in the furnaces of Detroit for generations. Produce it anyway. It was not a suggestion. It was a decree that echoed from the depths of his soul. And he added, "And keep working until you succeed, no matter how long it takes, no matter how much it costs." He dismissed them from his presence. He was not asking them to believe. He was commanding them to act as if they believed. He was demanding that they borrow their faith, that they use it as a tool even though they did not understand it. And the battle began. A war fought not with cannons, but with sand, fire, and molten iron. The engineers, loyal and perplexed, went back to their drawing boards. They designed. They built molds of filigree intricacy, and they poured the red-hot metal. To understand the depth of the psychological warfare that Ford waged against the forces of doubt, both external and internal, dive into Napoleon Hill's masterpiece, Wider Than the Devil. You can find the link to check it out in the first comment below. In it, you will discover the anatomy of fear and indecision, and you will learn to free yourself. And to bring this lesson into your life, accept the furnace challenge. This week, identify your personal impossibility, that goal that your reason insists on telling you cannot be done. Your challenge is not to achieve it, but rather, every day for 10 minutes to close your eyes and live it in your mind as a reality already achieved. Feel the emotion, make it real in your inner sanctuary. And the metal screamed in protest. It cracked, it cracked. The furnace spat out failure day after day. Each ruined block was a silent, "I told you so" from physical reality. The months dragged on like a funeral procession. The smell of burning metal and dashed hope hung over the factory. The engineers, their faces streaked with soot and exhaustion, presented Ford with the wreckage of their efforts. And each time Ford looked at them, his face a mask of impenetrable certainty, and said only, "Keep going." Where did this strength come from? It wasn't optimism. Optimism is fragile. It was persistence. Hill's the quality that transforms will into power. Persistence is not just about keeping on trying, it is about keeping on believing while you try. Ford understood that the battle was not going on in the foundry. It was going on in his own mind. He was the keeper of the frequency. As long as he kept the vision of the perfect engine running in his imagination, the physical universe would sooner or later have to synchronize with that transmission. He was engaged in a game of resistance against the inertia of the universe. He was applying constant, relentless pressure of will. He knew that defeat only becomes real the moment you accept it, and he refused to accept it. Years passed. Years. Imagine the faith it took. The outside world had forgotten. The competitors had moved on. But in the fortress of the Ford Motor Company, the silent war continued. Until one day, reality blinked first. A group of engineers, perhaps in an act of desperation or sheer genius born of exhaustion, tried a new approach, a different process, a different alloy. They poured the metal, and they waited. And the silence that followed was not the silence of tension, but the silence of integrity. No snap, no crack. With hands that shook with anticipation, they broke the mold. And there it was. Dark, raw, but whole, perfect, the impossible, made into iron. They assembled it, they connected the cables, and turned the crank, and the world heard a new sound, a deep, guttural roar, the sound of 8 cylinders firing in a harmony that reason had said was impossible, the sound of the echo finally returning. That engine was not created by the fires of the furnace. It was conjured by the fire of a mind that refused to be denied. This roar, this sound of the impossible becoming real, is what we seek. Now make this experience an alliance. Go down to the comments and declare, what is the V8 engine you commit to building in your life? Leave your statement as a testimony of your decision. As this story lit a flame in your spirit, be the spark for someone else. Share this video with someone who is in the battle against their own impossibility. Form your mastermind. The V8 engine became the beating heart of a new world. It propelled the Ford empire to stratospheric heights, but its impact went far beyond that. The accessible power it represented helped build modern America. It empowered not just cars but people. But Ford's genius, his attunement to the laws of the universe, did not stop there. In 1914, he shocked the world again. He announced that he would double his workers' wages to $5 a day. The reaction was apocalyptic. The Wall Street Journal called him a socialist, a traitor to his class. His peers predicted his downfall. They didn't get it. They operated on a frequency of scarcity, where profit is a finite resource to be hoarded. Ford was operating from the frequency of abundance. He wasn't being charitable. He was being a genius at the ecology of success. He knew that to sustain an empire that sold millions of cars, he needed millions of customers. By doubling wages, he was turning his own workers into his customers. He wasn't dividing the pie, he was baking a bigger pie for everyone. He was circulating prosperity. And the universe, which is a perfect mirror, reflected that circulation back to him multiplied 1,000-fold. He proved the great truth. Wealth is not hoarded, it is created. And it is created by adding value to the lives of others. He became living proof that a definite core purpose, when aligned with service, does not just build fortunes, it builds worlds. Henry Ford's saga is proof that his dominant thoughts are the architects of his destiny. Every screw, every gear, every dollar of his empire was the physical echo of a single decision, of a purpose held with a faith that bordered on insanity. And now, this saga becomes yours. It is not a relic in a museum, it is a mirror. And in that mirror you must confront yourself with the most important question of your life. What is your V8 engine? What is your personal impossibility? That masterpiece that the world tells you cannot be done. The world will offer you a million reasons to be reasonable. It will test you with temporary failure, and you will have to decide. Will you be the echo of circumstances or the source of command? Don't ask permission, don't wait for the ideal conditions. Lock yourself into the sacred workshop of your mind. Take the vision that is yours by divine right and raise it to the status of a definite major purpose. And then, with the calmness of a man commanding armies, look doubt in the face and give your order. Produce it anyway. The story was not about an engine. It never was. The story is about you. The project begins now within you. You have learned about the power of command. But before command comes clarity of vision. To master the first step of this journey, the building of your mental empire, immerse yourself in part 1 of this saga. Click on the video that now appears on the screen. The mind that builds empires from nothing. See you there.